Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. This week we're talking to Rupert Holloway, founder of Conker Spirit. Ruperts is one of those classic stories of someone feeling completely unsatisfied with a stable 9-to-5 job, who can no longer resist the urge to start on his own. In 2014, he was working in a job that he did not enjoy and resigned to begin what would become Conker Spirit. He's a great believer in confronting fear and using it to achieve your dreams, and he has a lot to say about the nature of work, purpose, and our perceptions around financial security and success. Rupert is a determined and thoughtful individual who I've been wanting to get on this podcast for a while. Last week, I finally managed to get him to sit down with me and talk about his wonderful journey. I do hope you enjoy. Rupert, welcome to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you for having me, Warren.
So Rupert, you and I have got to know each other a bit over the years since you started Conker Spirit.
Yeah.
And therefore really keen to have you on the podcast, understand a bit of your journey and a bit of your story, but also some of those fundamental principles and values that you have and opinions that you've formed about business and being a startup and growing through that startup process to being an established business. So hopefully then we can have that as the course and focus of our conversation today.
That sounds good to me.
But I suppose we should start from the beginning, shouldn't we? And that question that I think you're probably always asked is about how do you go from being, and these are your words, I think, an uninspired, a bored,
miserable.
Well, add that one in. So an uninspired, bored, miserable chartered quantity surveyor to starting a gin and spirit business.
It's a good question. It's a little while ago now, so you tend to get bogged down with running the business day to day. But it's nice to think back to it. I think it just boiled down to the fact that I've always been quite ambitious, and that was through school. That was a drive to get qualified and go to uni. And I did a biology degree, and although I got halfway through my biology degree and realised it wasn't for me, but stuck it out, got a 2-1. Went back to uni to do the construction stuff, so there's always a kind of like drive, and I basically got out the other side of qualifying as a quantity surveyor, which is a big effort. It's like an exam once you're in employment, and I've done 7 years I think as a chartered surveyor. I remember getting qualifying and just seeing no further targets that made me remotely happy. Do you know what I mean? Like no further like milestones in the career. Everyone who was like more senior than me got more and more miserable. So like the thought of becoming I was senior, but like going on to like, I don't know, director or whatever, I just couldn't see my life there in that role, and it just didn't make me happy. And I've always had quite a I've just placed a lot of importance on the fact that if you're not happy in your role, then your life is, no matter how much you're being paid,
just go do something. It's going
to be a really troublesome career and have no real legs. So, how did I make the leap from that? I think it was I'd seen quite a few of my friends either be self-employed as tradesmen or run their own businesses, and I just always in the back of my mind thought that's for me.
So do you think you were always destined to run your own
destiny.
Business? It was destiny. Was there always, like you talk about drive and a hunger, and was there always, do you think, that drive in the back of your mind even when you were at uni?
Yeah.
That actually one day I am going to run my own business?
I definitely went into the construction stuff thinking I will use that and do my own thing in that field.
Right, so it'll be a platform I will within that professional kind of environment.
Yeah, I'll go and have my own consultancy so there was definitely a appetite for it. And I'd sort of grown up my dad had businesses, all through the 80s, some with, peaks and huge troughs of success. And I'd seen my other families and friends have businesses. And I think it just always really intrigued me. And it just thought, do you know what, that building something that you can call your own.
Yeah.
And also, let's be frank, like the rewards of that as well always appeal to me. So I grew up,
perceived rewards.
Yeah, exactly. So people who own the business tend to drive nice cars and have nice big houses.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I remember because we were quite a poor family, so I remember thinking, oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
So which actually was, funnily enough, drove me into quantity surveying because that was really well paid.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's what we get. You get a really well paid job and everything's sorted. And then got that job and realised it doesn't matter what you're being paid at all because if you don't enjoy it, paycheck means nothing.
So I recently recounted my story on one of the podcasts, and and I absolutely resonate with that because I got to qualified accountant, qualified chartered tax advisor in a corporate firm, opportunity of partnership, and looked around and thought, I'm thinking exactly the same way, Rupert. This is where I was destined to be, and looking around thinking, this ain't me.
Yeah.
Now I've stayed within the profession and went, right, I can go and do my own thing, my own way, and do that. Yeah. But you then took this decision, right, I'll get out of construction. Yeah. And I'll go and make gin.
Yeah. Well, if I'd been true to what I really liked and what I was good at, I would have gone into like architecture. But you see, that's the thing. I went down a route which was, I didn't follow actually what I was really good at. Because actually where my role at Conker now, where I'm best placed, is in brand and design and creative and very quite the fluffy stuff around concept.
Which is a big part of Conker, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think if I'd been true to myself and gone down that route in building, I probably would still be, designing lovely buildings now, I reckon. Okay. It's the fact that I ignored that and put my fingers in the ears and went down the whole contracts, money, project management kind of stuff. But yeah, so I was 28, just turning 29, and I remember having a really tearful admission to my, I was going to say wife, girlfriend at the time, Emily, saying, I just hate my job. I hate my job. I want to do my own thing. Despite all appearances, the company car, the senior surveyor title, I can't bear it.
This ain't me.
Yeah, and it was probably aggravated by the fact that I used to drive an hour into work every day and an hour back. And I remember thinking I did a whole working day, 7-8 hours, in my car.
Yeah.
Not being paid. So had this, kind of like, oh, actually, everything's not fine. I'm not happy. And Emily said, right, by the time you're 30, you will have handed in your notice and you'll be working on whatever it is. Yeah. Whatever business idea you had.
Right. So she gave you the freedom to
100%.
And the confidence to explore.
Yeah. I mean, we are now a proper husband and wife team in the business, actually. So she started working in Conker when we started having kids, but now she's like key part of the management crew. Yeah. But she'll claim all the she was integral for every key step of the way. Yeah. But it's quite true, actually. Yeah. And so she was a teacher at a local school, and we just said, she said, we'll give it 2 years. Yeah. This is once we had the idea for the actual distillery. We'll give it 2 years on my wage. And we didn't have a mortgage, we didn't have any kids, so that was easy. Yeah. Relative to now.
You can take the risk at that point.
Yeah, 100%. And so it was, which is why when people say, oh, how did you take the risk? It's such a big leap. At the time, I genuinely didn't think it was. No. Because I had a qualification in quantity surveying, which, if all else failed, and even now I think they'd have me back. I think they would. Only just. I'd do the T's.
Are you employable?
Yeah, well, no, I don't think I am. But and I would be miserable as sin. Yeah. But I still think, I've got, those skills.
You've got that security. There's something there that would
certainly in the first 2 or 3 years of Conker, I was MRICS, qualified, and I could have stepped back into it. So the reality is, when you actually take out all the emotion of the risk and taking a leap and admitting to everyone that the career you've been pursuing for 10 years is a failure, inverted commas. Actually, the only risk I was facing was, kind of humiliation
Shame,
by just
humiliation,
taking a punt and having to crawl back and put a suit back on. But if you're afraid of that, then
business isn't for you then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and therefore, it was just you know, with a small distillery pot, and you know, experimentation, all of those things. But what advice would you give to somebody starting a business that you've got grand ideas for, but you're doing it you're bootstrapping it on a real shoestring?
Yeah.
So what are some of those lessons that you think that you learned going through that process that would be of value to others, Rupert?
Yeah. So I did not have any money. I didn't have a trust fund. I didn't have money burning a hole in the pocket, which I thought, what should I do with this? What business could I put this into? So I spent a lot of my time, and I remember being quite frustrated by it. A lot of my time was spent trying to find money and justify, like trying to bid for grants and bid for like startup loans. So that forced my hand to write a business plan, do the forecasts. Yeah. But you know what? When people, so I'm a big believer that it's better to start with nothing than to start with 100k in your pocket. Yeah. Because when you've got 100k in your pocket, you've got nothing to prove to anyone. No. You know, you convince yourself you've got a great idea and you go start spending. Yeah. Whereas when you've got no money, you've got to demonstrate and convince others that your business case is viable. Yeah. Which is the route I went, which means you get this like validation. Yeah. Rather than, I don't know what the expression is, but you know when you're kind of.
But you're not burning cash, are you? You're making decisions that are very considered, because every £1,000 that you get to spend on the business, from whatever source it may be, you've got to make the right decision with it, haven't you?
100%, yeah. So there's definitely that. Like, you've got less money, and so your decisions are probably more careful. Yeah. But really, it's this kind of idea that if you start, bootstraps have this very unique position where they've got to demonstrate to others very early on that the business is a viable idea. Whereas if you've got the cash, you don't really need to go through that process, because you can just crack on. So you could crack on with something which really doesn't have any legs, in the opinion of others. The advice would be, I mean, we touched on the fact that the risk that, leaving the day job, actually, when you boiled it all down, it wasn't a huge risk, because I didn't have kids, didn't have a mortgage, and I had a wonderful partner who paid the bills, and I had a kind of parachute of a career that I'd kind of built up that I could crawl back to. But yeah, I think the most important thing when you're kind of like got an idea is that validation thing. Yeah. And I think it's forcing yourself to do the maths. Yeah. Forcing yourself to do that. If I'm buying it for that and selling it for that, this is how much I've got in terms of kind of gross profit, you know, and how when will I break even? Like, really, it's really hard, because at the beginning, certainly with me, I had no idea what gross profit, what even that even meant. So it's and this is why I think so many businesses fail in the early on, is because it snowballs without actually the realization of how many coffees do I actually need to sell to pay back that van.
The fundamentals aren't there.
It turns out a lot. So
it's that the fundamentals aren't there, and there's not an understanding of the business model and the financial model that sort of supports the day-to-day operations.
Yeah. And that to people who aren't in business or running their own business, that sentence you just said there would be like quite intimidating. Business model, financial model, but it's not.
No,
It's really not. It's so simple. And that was one of the things I learned really young, is that running your own business can feel like a kind of you've got to learn it at uni, or inherit it, or you got it's like a bit of a boys' club. It just feels a little bit like, well, how do I get into that?
It's got mystique around it,
whereas
unnecessarily.
It has, Whereas actually, the best businesses, you hear these like great entrepreneurial stories. People, they start with a market stall selling something for £1, and they bought it for 50p, and that's it. Yeah, that's the business case. Yeah, isn't it? People want it. People want it. You've got it. Yeah, demands there. There's a profit. Yeah, and it really is as simple as that.
As long as you understand that you're making a profit.
Yeah. So, and then if those are in place, then it can be a bootstrap, because you can just very gradually, organically grow, and that's what we did. I started on a 30-litre pot still. Right. which could make like 60 bottles.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
And then when I could afford 2 30-litre stills, we did. Got 2 of them. And then we got 2 60-litre stills, which, you know, doubled it, tripled it again, whatever. And now we've got only recently just installed a 500-litre. And it's all been through, you know, not through investment.
Right. It's all organic.
It's all organic. Yeah.
Must be proud of that.
Yeah, it's a funny one because obviously it's a bit of a slower route.
Yeah.
But you haven't given away too much equity.
Yeah.
By selling shares to raise money. And it's the ultimate validation of the business case. Definitely. That it's growing organically.
It's growing organically. You'll be able to reinvest back in.
And you learn so much from that because obviously to do that you've got to be profitable.
So is there anything from that kind of aspect that you'd do differently when you reflect on the 7-8 years since that nightly moment of I've got to get out? It
would have been tempting to raise some serious cash.
Right.
In the first 3 years or so.
So once you'd proven the product,
once it was, because if you start, you know, if you look for money when it's in a concept, you give away half your business, and it would be so hard to even find anyone. I mean, an alternative would have been that we raised £1 million 3 years ago, and that would have meant much more muscle in the conversations we're having because we're up against the big, you know, the Bacardis, the Diageos.
Yeah.
And we can throw everything at it, and it's like, oh, Diageo have slightly deeper pockets. And this is for like marketing or listing. You know, listings of supermarkets cost a lot of money because you've got to support it with promotions and marketing and stuff. So that would help having lots more money in your back pocket. But then again, in the same breath,
with the business being
what's the rush?
Today. Yeah.
And what's the rush? Like there's a lot of emphasis on growth, scale, exit. Whereas actually we're growing something that's got real substance.
Yeah. And as long as you're enjoying that journey, because it is a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. There's a lot of focus on exits, and actually, if you and I get asked it a lot, as you can imagine, because people think that's the popular.
It's an assumption that that's where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. And I just say, well, if you're working towards an exit, you're going to be seriously disappointed because it'll either not come or you'll spend the next 20 years just waiting and like
enjoying the moment.
So for me, building the business up to be valuable, which if it's so valuable is me working less, probably earning good money from it, but like not being so reliant on me. They're the same thing.
Yeah, this is the philosophy. I talk to a lot of clients about it. The philosophy is exactly the same. Create a great business that's independent of you,
and then someone will want to buy it.
That has an exit value.
Yeah, exactly.
Focus on the money, focus on the exit, and you forget all of these things you need to do to create a great business, and you never achieve.
Yeah.
Or you don't achieve the exit you should.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, you know, an exit is like winning the lottery in the sense of the how all the stars have got to align.
Yeah.
You know, the right buyer. It's not at all.
And it's definitely not for everybody. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So once you had the product, at what point did you really switch into the brand? You say now, you know, your focus is and your passion is the brand.
Yeah.
At what point did that become the priority over the product?
It was always always priority over the product.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is why when the idea sort of landed, that it clicked, because I knew how to talk about it, how it would look.
Okay.
My customer. I was basically selling it to myself. Conker is it's literally I'm the target audience, which is probably the wrong way to think about it. But you know, 30-something kind of interested in drink quality and provenance and spirits. What likes to pick a good lager from a local company, and you know, that, you know, takes an interest in it. So from the very concept, I was always really aware about the importance of the brand and the kind of why not what we were doing, because lots of people make gin now. So the brand and the why and what we stand for is the key thing.
Again, I suppose I'd ask you some lessons or tips or sound bites maybe around what I think Conker has is this great tone of voice, this great, this great personality about the brand, and it resonates, in the market. So, how did you go about creating that tone of voice and that brand identity?
Well, I think that's
because
that's interesting, isn't it? Well, it doesn't feel created to me.
Okay.
It's not synthesized. It's not something
Yeah.
we've thought much about. It's just very honest and straightforward. So often, and a good analogy for this is, and I bet this doesn't happen, but I like to think it does happen, is I sometimes, when I talk to the team about what we do, and how, we're small, and that gives us real value around how we can talk to customers. That's what people like. They like the provenance of small craft. What I like to think of is a Diageo or Bacardi board meeting.
Yeah.
And there's a great big table in a room, and they turn to, the guy at the head of the table says, right, how do we appear more like Conker?
Yeah.
Because they don't have any of that, and they've got to synthesize it. They've got to create that. They've got to create that provenance, small craft, local, flat struck, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Everything that we are, Diageo ain't.
Yeah. No.
So they've got to, and the brands they work with, they've got to install these things. Whereas all we do is turn the camera on ourselves. All we do is take a picture of what we're actually doing. We're hand bottling.
And stay true to yourselves and
values. Stay true, 100%. Yeah. So it doesn't. When you say like how do we create it? It's just it's really so. I call it like transparency is our marketing.
Yeah. Okay.
Our marketing strategy is transparency.
Okay. So honesty and transparency.
Yeah, because unlike Diageo, we've got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
God, they're never gonna be interested in us after us. But any big spirits brand.
Good job you're not after an exit.
Yeah. Any big, but they haven't got anything to hide. But in terms of like why people buy into craft spirits, Conker is like the personification of all those things, isn't it?
Yeah, get that.
So we've just, I suppose, like I said, but the brand that I've always been aware of that from the outset. It hasn't been about making gin as such. It's been about sort of creating this why people can be interested in, buy into.
Okay.
But it's just so the first bit of marketing I ever did was for Conker was start the Facebook page. Yeah. And I did a post that said, I've left my day job.
Yeah.
I'm setting up Dorset's first gin distillery.
Yeah.
Follow me.
That's it.
And so that's the ultimate example.
It's been about that journey since.
And that's what people buy into, yeah.
So has it frustrated you? I suppose it's the same in the beer world, isn't it? But all of these big distilleries and drinks companies have got into sort of craft beer, craft gin, craft spirits, and they're nothing but. Like
I grumble in private.
You grumble in private, yeah.
I grumble in private when the multi-billion beer craft beer brands launch craft spirits and market them as such, because it's, I mean, what the definition of craft is really broad. So obviously you can't use that word. I don't mean that. No. I just mean that the market's so flooded with what are really, if you dissect them and compare them to the small distilleries, they really aren't. So, but you can't publicly or as a brand start waving around a kind of.
It's just frustrate me.
It is frustrating.
You're trying to create, you and others are trying to create your space, aren't you, in that market? And then you don't get the opportunity necessarily to create your space. Yeah. Because others would like to checkbooks, but perhaps that's just the world and competition.
It's just our job. It's just our job in Conker to show people that, and we've got another word. We've coined this genuine craft.
Okay.
So genuine craft is, there's lots of craft, and then there's genuine craft.
Okay, that's how you've done it. Right.
So genuine craft basically means that we're the real deal, and it's our job to show people that. Yeah. Through how we market ourselves. The word small batch gets put around a lot. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything. It can't be quantified, but big worldwide spirits brand will use the word small batch. Yeah. And so will the lady on the corner making 10 bottles of gin a week.
A small batch.
So, yeah. But then, in the same breath, like the consumer is getting more and more canny.
Yeah.
And they're getting more and more educated about it as well.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that, since the gin revolution thing 10 years ago,
Yeah.
it really quite an ignorant consumer, because
Yeah.
it was totally new, and now everyone's
Yeah.
been trained up in gin and understands it and sees the brands for what they are and stuff. So yeah, that's just our job to.
Going back a bit to your journeys, what was your first kind of punch the air moment, that moment of joy that you had in the business, do you think? What was the first moment when you really thought, this is going to work?
Well, I mean, our the sales in the first year completely outstripped expectations. Right. So the whole business plan was based on very modest revenue. So that's going back to testing the business. It was literally a case of, if it replaces my wage, I'm happy.
Yeah.
If in 3 years I'm employed by Conker,
yeah,
fine, job done, because I'm not a surveyor anymore. It turned out that we spent a whole year before I could sell anything. So I left my day job, and it was a whole year before I could sell the first bottle.
Okay.
So in that time, we built up so much following that we went to food festivals and just gave samples away. Went to bars and restaurants and top hotels, and they were just saying, right, when can we have it?
Yeah.
So by the time I could sell the first bottle in April 15, I mean, there weren't enough bottles. So we spent the first 2-3 years just chasing our tails.
Wow.
So that in simplest terms, it was
this is, we're on the journey.
Yeah. And we got Waitrose listings quite quickly, M&S listings. A few really great wins.
So for anybody in the food and beverage industry to get a listing with the likes of Waitrose and M&S is seen as a pinnacle, isn't
100%,
it?
100%, yeah.
So thoughts on, hints, tips on how you went about achieving that?
Well, I actually think we're pretty rare, and when I speak to most people about getting Waitrose listings, they are pitching, they're going in, they are, which is where we are now. We're at that stage now when we're trying to get new listings or get national with our listings. It's long conversation with buyers, pitching.
Right.
At the time, they were like, we need a Dorset gin. Who's the Dorset gin? And we just were the Dorset gin. So it just, I mean, if I'm honest, it just landed
serendipity
on our laps.
That moment in time. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just a function of the fact that our business was taking advantage of this gap in the market, Dorset, that regional space, but also the kind of growing market. So there was a huge appetite in the likes of Waitrose. So, but that put us in a false sense of security. By year 4 and year 5, the appetite and the market got very busy.
Yeah.
And so the first 2 or 3 years of Conker, our sales department, well, there wasn't one. It was simply doing events and marketing, doing social stuff.
And I suppose I hadn't really thought about that, but you're in that relatively short journey you've had since 2013. You've gone from a market that was immature to a market that's absolutely mature.
Saturated. Yeah.
How's your marketing approach changed as a result of that? Or how's the business model changed as a result of that?
Yeah. It's completely changed.
Yeah. So
year 3, we suddenly realised, so sales just don't come flying through the door forever. So just exponential growth isn't just what is set in stone for me.
Yeah.
So we had the stark realisation that we had to build a sales team, kind of diversify the portfolio a little bit, and actively seek distribution beyond our kind of reach.
Yeah.
Because there's only so far geographically a Dorset gin, the novelty of a Dorset gin carries, and that was where that first 3 years took us. We went to every pub and out to Devon and Cornwall and certain places above, but generally to get that further reach, you have to actively get in front of people. So we built a sales team. We got in. We've dabbled with sort of sales agency type people.
Okay.
We now work with what's called a distributor in the UK, which is an agency that they look after a number of brands.
Yeah.
So the spirits world have distributors who have portfolios of brands they
Okay.
look after, and then they have the big conversations with the supermarkets
Yeah.
or the big pub groups, which we just wouldn't even get in front of.
Okay.
Or if we did, we wouldn't know the lingo.
Is there a good pro quo there? You've got their knowledge, their experience, their black book that opens the doors,
Yeah.
but your brand that has this values and integrity behind it. So I suppose, how do you overcome this kind of positioning that you have, but actually being represented by a distributor?
Well, we're the brand guardians, so it's
Okay.
our job to be the brand marketeers
Yeah.
and do that job. So it's just making sure that all your team and your consultants are all, part on speaking from the same sheet, really. And I used to panic that, a supermarket listing would mean that people thought we weren't small and craft
Small
anymore.
niche craft.
But it turns out that's not true because, one thing people like a success story.
Yeah.
So, but equally, you can have a really amazingly made product that is in every corner of the globe.
Yeah.
There's plenty of examples of
That's
wines
what
or
great
champagne.
business is
Yeah,
all
exactly.
about,
So
isn't
it's
it?
just our job to make sure we
Done.
honour our roots as we grow.
And how did you go about, again, because I think for the listeners that are looking to route to market, how did you go about choosing the distributor? Because that must have been a critical decision in that journey.
Yeah, and it was actually at a time that there was very little appetite to take on gin distilleries because of the fact, this is when I'm talking, they came took the reins in, just the beginning of COVID.
Okay.
So they literally signed up and then they put all their staff on furlough. So it's quite special. So it all strings back to our coffee liqueur.
Yeah.
So we talked about the gin market being saturated and needing to sort of diversify. We launched in 2017. We launched the UK's first cold brew coffee liqueur,
Which is an amazing product. If you haven't tried it, go buy a bottle.
available in all good bookshops. So, and that was a real deliberate move away from gin.
Yeah.
We're called Conker Spirit, not
Yeah.
Conker Gin.
Yeah.
So from the outset, it was we'll use the gin wave to become a thing.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking there will be a gin distillery on every corner,
Yeah.
every street corner. So, market it like a maniac and I remember thinking you've got to do it in a way which you would just hate to be in the wake of Conker. It'd be it'd be a nightmare to have to compete with, but also don't hang your hat on gin.
Yeah.
So the coffee liqueur now we're now easily we're definitely one of the world's leading brands, not in volume but certainly in quality and positioning.
Yeah.
So we're definitely a UK leader in it, and there's really one competitor in the world, I'd say. And that's all our sales conversations are now led with that. So if we knock on the door of the Tesco bar and say we've got a great gin, they'll laugh.
Okay.
They'll
Have
laugh.
you seen Michelle?
Yeah, they'll laugh. But the coffee liqueur is so unique,
Okay.
and it's such a it's a real gap in the market because it's this premium. Every category of spirits had its premium craft alternative, and the idea came from it because I remember going into bars and selling my gin, the Dorset Dry, and looking at the back bar, and there would be 10 of everything. There'd be 10 tequilas, whiskies, bourbons, 1,000 gins, and then one bottle of Kahlua.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, what is that about? How come? And yet you can in the same place or down the road buy a flat white for £4, and it's hand grown, hand picked, and people buy into that.
Yeah.
So the whole mission around the coffee liqueur was to bring the ethics and experience of craft coffee into the cocktail.
Okay.
Which, going back to the distributor thing, they found us because they wanted to represent us for the coffee liqueur.
Okay.
Because they saw the opportunity.
Right. That was it. That was the.
Which, if we hadn't have launched the coffee, there's no way in hell anyone would have approached us because there's gins a very challenging market, and most distributors have a portfolio of gins. So that's where that's sort
and
of
it
all
was just, it wasn't a, so it really just was, because it's an interesting conversation for people out there, isn't it, in thinking about diversification, new product, new services. You really just, it was just a kind of lightning bolt moment, having walked in and out of loads of bars, looked at the spirits behind the bar and thought there's something here that's missing.
Well, I think so when we launched the Dorset Dry,
the
first thing people said pretty much was what's next, which was very frustrating.
I could ask you that, and it's what's next.
Exactly. And you know, all of our kind of other brands that were doing it, you know, they were launching slow gins or fruit gins or whatever, which we probably actually should have done for the short term. But actually we I've always believed that like the opportunities in the gaps of what other people are doing, because that's where the gap is.
I like that. The opportunities are in the gaps.
The opportunities in the gaps, but it's also where all the risk is, and all the failure is as well. I was just I still believe now, and I remember saying to the team, it was quite a small team then, about the coffee liqueur, and I still say it now, that one day we'll say to ourselves, do you remember when we used to make gin? Fear not, we'll never discontinue our gins. Good. But I do feel like that is our golden egg.
Okay.
I do feel
the one.
It's the one. Yeah, it's doing really well internationally. It's such a point of difference, and I know it sounds. I'm actually quite a modest person. Don't like saying things like this, but if I genuinely believe that it's the best coffee liqueur in the world. Which sounds crazy. Crazy as a little Englishman to say that, but it really is. Like it's hard. It's objectively good in terms of coffees. They're like some of the best coffees in the world. It's no corners. It's indulgent. It's great. So
I just said it's an amazing product.
So we're just product speaks for itself. We're going to do a bit more work around putting it on a pedestal. It's been a bit lost in our range, so there's going to be some changes over the next few months around giving it some space within the range, some identity, which makes total sense as it's our golden egg. But that's a lot of the strategy going forward.
So obviously established now, do you still fear any sense of failure? Is there what drives you now?
What drives me now? Super ambitious. I want it to be a big thing. And I want it to be.
How did you find a big thing?
Well, I know it's difficult. People ask me this all the time, like, what does success look like? And I really don't have an answer for that, because it's forever moving as well. Like, a success for me is a national waitress listing. And I'll now get that, and then I'll be like, right, what's
next?
So it is awful, that kind of drive, and it's probably one of my. You've got to teach yourself to be in the now.
Enjoy the bit of the moment.
But I think certainly the next few years is me becoming less essential in the business, so less function. At the moment, I'm super functional. Like I'm not involved operationally, which is great. So I could tomorrow take 2 weeks off, and empty bottles would come in, and the full ones would go out. Which is I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, you should be. There's not a lot of business owners get stuck in that rut of not being able to achieve that. And how have you gone about doing that?
Well, I've built a team of absolute legends who are all completely sold on the idea, and so the first person I ever hired was a chap called Fred Gamper, who was my best mate at school.
Okay. Friends in business, they say that.
I know, but we're quite, we're very different. We get along amazingly, but we're also very differently. So I'm the kind of creative, the person who should be at the kind of helm of a business like Conker, and he's the sort of person who should be on the operational manufacturing,
looking after
100%. All the kind of ticking of the boxes and making sure we're legal and safe and delicious.
Legal, safe and delicious. That's Fred's job.
It is. So he was or is a PhD in immunology. He was working for the NHS in like like a bloods hospital sort of thing. Helped me on a few events and thought, this is fun.
Yeah.
And it's just he's been absolutely crucial. And as I say, now I really can leave the function.
Yeah.
And it's my job now to, literally every week there's something different we need to do around direction and how we talk, and that's it's
and that's
great.
the bit that gives you energy. And
it's the bit that I really enjoy. The brand building and the real creative side of stuff.
So when you reflect on the journey so far, you talked about Emily and the importance of Emily in the business. You talk about children now. What effect has running and starting and building Conker had on family life for you?
Yeah. Well, obviously in the first 4 years, it's incredibly demanding on time, and you need a very, very understanding partner.
Yeah.
But she was always so sold and on the idea that it was always we were in it together. But then there's what I love about Conker is that when I worked as a surveyor, I was a surveyor 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And then I was Rupert the rest of the time.
Yeah.
I put on a hat and pretended to be someone else because I didn't really enjoy it as well, so I wasn't really myself.
No.
Our lives and Conker are so entwined; they are completely one. That there's this like feeling of really achieving and doing stuff.
Yeah.
And Emily, as I said, is so integral to the business. She's probably a bit too integral. Her head explodes a few times when she's got the kids, and she does. It's very easy to be all consuming.
Yeah.
And I would love to make some hires that would mean she, in a funny kind of way, knows less about what we're doing, so she can chill.
Well, I suppose in a similar way that you now play to your strengths, it'd be great to have Emily playing to hers within the business, but some time there for you both to be family.
Yeah, we've had with lockdown and staff, had a few people go elsewhere. All the jobs that they do fall on us, don't they? So you end up doing crazy amounts of work. But I love the fact that Conker is a family mission, and I don't ever feel like I'm going to work really, and that's such a cliche, isn't it?
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong.
It's a great place to be.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I wake up in the morning sometimes and think, I'd just sleep all day, thanks. Yeah. But it doesn't. It's work isn't the appropriate word for it. If that makes sense. And fingers crossed, it's going to be transforming for the family. It already has been in terms of the things we've done, and but it's very exciting. You think you change your perspective and you think quite big and think, maybe one day I'll be able to do this.
Yeah, definitely.
But I just want to I think my mission would be to just become less. Go down to 4 days, work from home a couple of days. Yeah, exactly. But that's every business leader's dream. Hey?
I'm 17 years in and I'm still hoping that's the outcome.
Yeah.
We normally wrap up the podcast by saying, what's the definition of success? But we've touched on that, and you said everybody asks you that, so I'm not going to ask you that. But I suppose what I'm going to ask you then, having gone through this journey, having reflected on your journey to that point of starting Conker, what do you think are your most important principles, both in business and in life?
Yeah, not a big question.
No, we're not going to end on a biggie.
Well, you've got to be happy in what you do, otherwise you're screwed.
Yeah.
It is like, I've got three young girls. When they ask me, or when they're talking about what they're going to do, I'm going to be like, whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Because life's short and long and miserable if you're not doing what you love. But not only will you enjoy it, you're much better at doing stuff that you love.
Yeah.
You will make more money doing the stuff you love.
Yeah.
It's black and white fact.
Yeah.
So, pursue the things you love. I think that's a lesson I learned at 28. That's when I realised, hang on a second, there is in everyone. There's this drive for money.
Yeah.
And I've obviously still got that now, so I definitely wouldn't go to work.
Yeah. We all need financial security. We need security.
It wouldn't be the effort we put into Conker. It wouldn't be worth it if it was just not going to make any money. Of course. But if I hated Conker, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I 100% would not do it.
So that meaning and core principle is just follow what you love, do what you love.
Follow what you love, and support and encourage people. Like, so all the people I employ when we sit down for appraisals and stuff, I'm like, I'm thinking this. I do not want to employ you unless you're loving your role.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get rid of you, but it's so important that we create a role they love.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and so everyone in the team has got to be empowered and excited about the next 6 months, sort of thing.
Brilliant. That's a great philosophy. I can get it from the owner's perspective, but I don't think I'd ever quite. I talk about play to strengths. Yeah. Want to play to everybody's strengths because generally that's when they're happy. Yeah. But actually, you need your team to love what they do. Yeah. So me being able to go, I mean, I literally could go for a 2-week holiday tomorrow. I never would, and I won't, and I don't. But and everything would happen. Christmas would happen, because. Not just because we've got all the people in place, but because they actually really do want to be there. Yeah. I like to think, and they've all got that. They're all sold on the concept and building it with me. So fantastic. Yeah. So Rupert, if people want to know more about you, more about Conker, find out more about the gin and the wonderful coffee liqueur, where can they go? Yeah, of course. Our website, we're going to have a new website soon, which will be even better. But head to our website, pick up the phone, write us an email. Yeah, for sure. Or just head into Waitrose and just buy a bottle of Dorset Dry. Yeah, go grab a bottle. And then go to the website. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, Rupert. Thank you for being a great guest on the Evolve to Succeed. Thank you so much. Cheers, Warren. Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.